thing I did not understand, but now I know. Just now I know. You just keep on saying there is no God like Jehovah, great King of the universe. All it does is understand. Let all Israel say amen. Oh la 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 la. Oh la 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 la. My voice was trembling, my mouth was dry. I had lost all my hope and my strength. Thought I would die. Oh Lord, I felt a cold chill. Then I felt the fever. I had visions and dreams of another land for you and I. Oh Lord, we just won't say there is no God like Jehovah, great King of the universe. All it does is understand. Let all Israel say amen. Oh la 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 la. Oh la 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 la. I love you hour on hour, oh my King. Oh yeah, yeah. You are my strength and guiding power, everything. Oh yeah. I love you hour on hour, Jehovah. Oh Lord, and I just wanna thank you. Say good God Almighty, I just wanna thank you. Say good God Almighty, I just wanna thank you. Say good God Almighty for everything. Oh, there is no God like Jehovah. Oh Lord, there is no God like Jehovah. There is no God like Jehovah. Great King of the universe. All it does is understand. Let all his love say amen. There is no God like Jehovah, great King of the universe. All it does is understand. Let all his love say amen. Oh la 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 la. Oh la 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 la. Hey hey hey. There's no God like Jehovah.
My name is Cohen Michael Ben Levi of the Hebrew family of Guyana. The aim of these dissertations is to cause the true house of Israel, who have been without knowledge of themselves for countless generations, and who are now being awakened by the God of the universe, to better serve our Creator. It is our hope that by reacquainting this awakening black nation with their laws and former history, it will hasten our return to our true identity, thereby acknowledging our ancient ancestors This in turn will allow us to know our Father's God and prepare us to stand together to meet the terrible day of the Creator that He is now readying for all mankind. May He cause all your minds and hearts to understand.
Shabbat Shalom Lakim, giving all thanks and honor to the Maker of heaven and earth, the Holy One of Israel. We pray that the Holy One of Israel has blessed all of your families, that He's granted you peace on this Shabbat day. I also pray that He would comfort those that are mourning the loss of a loved one or facing health challenges at this time. I thank the Most High for the peace that He's brought into many of the lands of the captivity over the past week. And we all must realize that things could have gone much, much worse. So we thank the Holy One of Israel for His mercies and His kindness towards us. Today, I would like you to listen to some footage, because I was always taught by my late teacher, Cohane ben Israel, that an informed people are a wise people. Wisdom is important, and one has to educate him or herself. To be informed, you must seek facts and truth. And this is not a religious program, and it's for particular people in one thought, but all humanity in another. So we're addressing the peculiarity of the situation with those that have been brought into the Western Hemisphere into slavery, and those who also have found themselves conquered in the lands of Africa. So listen to this tape about the land of Eden. That's where the Garden of Eden was, in part, in Africa. And let's learn about our continent before we go into our program today.
Small, intellectually, politically, and economically insignificant Africa. But is that really true? Now, here are the facts. Africa has a total area space larger than all of Europe, China, and the United States of America combined. Yes, it is 3 times the area of China, 3 times the area of Europe, 3 times the area of United States of America, meaning you can transplant China, Europe, and United States, and several other countries on the Africa continent, and they will fit neatly. Africa is 30.5 million square kilometers and a youthful population of 1.3 billion inhabitants. China is 9.6 million square kilometers and 1.4 billion inhabitants. India has a total space of 3.3 million square kilometers and 1.4 billion inhabitants. Now, yet, Africa is projected as overpopulated, and pressure mounts on Africans and their leaders to depopulate. Why? Why? Now, please note, Africa is home to 60% of the world's arable land, 90% of raw material reserve, 40% of gold reserve, 33% of diamond reserve, 95% of platinum reserve, and holds the largest bauxite reserves in the world. Of course, in addition to manganese, woods, uranium, crude oil, and others. Yet, the continent is touted as the poverty capital of the world and ripe for depopulation. The question is, why? Well, President Jacques Chirac of France provides an illuminating insight. He said, "We bled Africa for 4.5 centuries. We looted their raw materials, then we told lies that the Africans are good for nothing. In the name of religion, we destroyed their culture. And after being made rich at their expense, we now steal their brains through miseducation and propaganda. to prevent them from enacting black retribution against us, unquote. Well, put simply, for over 4 centuries, Africa is not in control of its resources. Look, a 2016 study of Africa by the NGO called War on Want reveals that 101 companies, mostly British, control $305 billion worth of platinum, $276 billion worth of oil, and $216 billion worth of coal at 2016 market prices. Yes, they own mines or mineral licenses in 37 African countries and control vast swaths of Africa's land, 4 times the size of the United Kingdom. Now look, Africa subsidizes the rest of the world by $32 billion annually. A 2017 report by Global Justice Now and other groups estimates that $161.6 billion enter into Africa, while $202.9 billion leave Africa almost every year. For example, in 2017, Africa received a total of $19.7 billion in aid, but paid back $18 billion in debt repayments. Debt burden is killing Africa. African governments have borrowed between 25 and 75% of their GDP, but with little or nothing to show for it. Africans in the diasporas remit not less than $32 billion annually, but multinational companies siphon $32.4 billion in profits and illicit financial outflows. Look, an estimated $29 billion are stolen via illegal logging, fishing, and poaching annually. How can any continent, country, or people accumulate and sustain wealth, growth, and prosperity with such statistics? That's a great question. Well, look, hopefully, now you know your Africa better. Edmund Mbiaka once wrote, "Peace of mind always comes with knowing who you truly are, where you currently stand, where you positively need to be, and strongly believing in its possibility." Africa needs to control its resources, no doubt. For productive, patriotic, and effective leadership, we need our best and ablest citizens with fortified character in local, state, and federal governments. This must be given utmost consideration in upcoming elections across Africa. Let me say it once more. Our problem is not the age of our leaders, but unfortified character. It is your responsibility to protect and defend your Africa. The starting point is to educate and transform the mindset of our leaders and peoples. Look, the least you can do is to assist with ensuring that this message reaches every African. Slavery destroyed us. Religion divided us. Ignorance controls us. And truth scares us. With these retrogressive forces, Africa will remain a dark continent. So we must renew our minds. Please share this video in support of my efforts at reconstructing Africa through mindset transformation. You see, together, we will reconstruct Africa and take charge of our destiny. For who controls Africa controls the world. I thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I think the information speaks for itself. We have to be a wise and be an informed people. The late John Lewis, the late congressman, before he died, spoke some very powerful words. He said, when you see something and it worries you, speak up and say something. It is our human right to speak up and to speak out on issues that concern and affect our very existence. We disagree with Paul's, Matthew's, Mark, Luke, and John's Gospels and Epistles. We disagree as Hebrews with the writings of the New Testament that are inaccurate. And we have a right, a human right to do so. This program is designed to speak truth, and it's a truth-centered teaching academy in service to humanity. The world needs truth today. This program is designed to do something about it. About what? Our identity has been suppressed. The true knowledge of the Almighty has been suppressed and even changed. The people of Israel have been changed into Jews, and the Creator has been changed to a man called JC, or in other religions, various other idols by various other names. We as Hebrews reject this, and we have a right to do so based on our own heritage and teachings from the Creator and from our teachers. Moses, the prophets, are those that we speak of here. We must realize that racism is strong and vibrant today, and it's systemic, as we would say. It's widespread, it's everywhere. And so one of the late minister's or senator's words was, never give up. We can't give up because we don't have equality, and we're seeking justice for all in this world today. We are determined as a people to restore ourselves, and we are determined as a people to restore the true knowledge of who the Creator is, as well as who we, the so-called Negroes, are. And so I want you to, again, listen to some of the words you heard today in that very powerful message. It says in one place, in the name of religion, we destroyed the continent of Africa. Do you understand how powerful that statement is and how true it is? In the name of religion, they destroyed our people. And so this program is extremely important in dealing with religion. There is an obscure period between the Maccabean history and the Christian era. So I'd like to have a timeline put up at this time so we can understand our subject from a very fundamental place and then build as we make our case of an Israelite perspective on the epistles of Paul the Apostle. If you see this timeline, it begins in BC 4,000 years prior to Christianity, because we have Adam and Eve being created and made at this time. And all of the history flows right down, counting from 4,000. Of course, intelligently, we should be counting from 1, but we're counting backwards. If we counted backwards from the Christian era, we would be at, again, 4,000 years of history. That is the history, basically, of the Old Testament. Everyone should understand time, chronology in history, and understanding the Bible is extremely important. That's why we're dealing with a timeline to show you where we are. 4,000 years of history had passed, and we came down to the time of Zedekiah, the king of Israel, that we began to see the captivity of Israel take place. Somewhere around 597 or so, historians agree that we went into Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon, and we were in captivity for Babylon for hundreds of years. We only returned briefly to fulfill Jeremiah's prophecy concerning these 70 years. And so we look at JC and we see the year 1. That begins the period of time that we are now talking about when we speak about the New Testament, although it's inaccurate. What do we mean by inaccurate? He was not born in the year 1. They only declared year 1 because they said it was Anno Domini, and that allowed them to form their calendar based on the birth of this particular character. However, if one were to look at the history, they would see that there are certain other characters that existed, like Augustus, who was the person governing at that time, the Caesar on the throne of Rome. And so when they measure the time, they can see that he was earlier than the year 1. Many historians put his birth at maybe 4 BCD, or what we might call 4 years before AD, the period of what we would call the modern era, or the period after, again, the birth of this figure they call JC. I'd like you to listen to a precept, because many of you might wonder why I am not saying the name of this person. I'd like to have you listen to a precept that is the law of the Creator, that's found in the book of Exodus, the 23rd chapter and the 13th verse. We find these words that speak about making the mention of the names of other gods. And so we do not do that because we have to respect the Creator. Here is what Exodus 23 verse 13 says.
Exodus chapter 23, verse 13. Pay attention to all that I have said to you, and make no mention of the names of other gods, nor let it be heard on your lips.
So that is why myself and the readers do not make the mention of the names of these other gods. And when we do so in teaching, because sometimes we have to do so, and we're not doing it to worship or to acknowledge this idol, this human that has been made a god, it's forbidden by the maker of heaven and earth. And so back to our timeline, and let's understand from the period that we are speaking about. On that timeline, if you notice, everything took place within the first 100 years of the Gregorian calendar. Pope Gregory established a calendar that we look at today, and we call it 2021, or many people erroneously say 2021. But it's really 2021 years. Let's take away the 2020, and then we'll have 1 year. And that's how it started. 1 counting up to now. That's our calendar. Now we're looking at the events in the first 100 years of the present calendar that is called 2021. Only everything that we're talking about took place within 100 years. The birth of Jesus, the death of JC, the life of the apostles and the disciples. All of them lived and died before the 100 years had been completed. And the Christian Savior, he died first. 33 years was the period of his life on earth. We have to understand that. 33 years did he live on this earth, this person that they claim to be the Son of the Creator, the Son of God. And we always teach you the truth. Israel do not agree with that, because Exodus tells us that Israel is the Creator's son, and it's his firstborn son that he chose even before a New Testament was written. We all have to agree. Two cannot walk together unless they agree and be agreed. So we have to agree on these facts. We're not speaking rhetoric. This is not insincere statements being made. They're sincere. They're truth-centered. And one of the things that was also said in the documentation that we listened to, the article, the words about Africa, truth scares us. And it's true. Truth scares people. Because sometimes if it's not what you believe, you're destroying a person's system of belief. And I respect that. I'm not here to shatter you. I want to take you from a place where you are to a better place, even if you're a Christian or European. If you're a confused Israelite, it's imperative that you understand your salvation lies in the maker of heaven and earth, the power of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob, which is the foundation of the Bible teachings. Today, I'd like us to have a reasoning section before we go into the meat of our material, like a fireside talk, just reasoning with one another and trying to see if what we're speaking about has any value, weight, significance, importance. And I'm telling you, it's extremely important. An Israelite perspective on the epistles of Paul the Apostle. Levitical communications is centered around truth teachings. We train in our academy priests, Misharatim and Morim, who come to the position to be teachers of our people. Because this is the day and the return of the Cohane Moreh. The Cohane Moreh. They call it and translate it the teaching priest. I'm a Cohane, not a priest in the traditional sense that you might think of, because who wants to be associated with those men called priests in the Catholic Church? They were discharged this week with more cases of abuse and more cases of pedophilia. I'm not that type of man, nor is any Cohane. They translated it as priest. The word Cohane means more a serving teacher, a servant of the Most High. That is more accurately defining what and who we represent. We are attempting to break the chains of mental slavery, and they must be broken by establishing the correct truth and Bible understanding. Our people are destroyed for the lack of the right knowledge. The knowledge of being able to discern what's right, what's true, and what's false in the Bible. The Bible was used, as he said, in that message, that it was one where religion destroyed not only the continent, it destroyed our people. It destroyed your knowledge of who your God is, because now you have the God of your European slave masters. They destroyed your culture. That's why you're doing Christmas and Easter and all of that other stuff of European culture. They destroyed yours. I'm showing you what yours is. It's in the Bible. Your culture, your history. You are the Hebrew people. Your language is Ivrit. They called it Hebrew. And our own language is called Ivrit. They call us Israel. Our true name in our language is Yisrael. These are facts that can be proven. They must be said, because through this manipulation of names is how they fool the people. For instance, most people think that Israel and Jew are synonymous. Today you're going to learn more about it's not. You have to understand the difference between a Jewish person, a Jew, and an Israelite. Briefly speaking, a Jew is a convert Our other programs all are programs that one builds on the other. And we've already said many times that Europeans were pagan worshipers. Sometimes they worshiped their ancestors. Some of them were Christians in the time when they converted to Judaism. So a European Jew could be a Frenchman that was a Christian and became a Jew. It could be an Englishman, person of Britain or British descent that no longer practiced the Anglican religion, but he started living by the Jewish religion. And we're going to break down what that religion is. And of course, they can be a German Jew, a Russian Jew, a Hungarian Jew, Czechoslovakian Jew. And Jew never refers to people of Africa. That was not one of our names. It's not in our Hebrew lexicon of words or vocabulary. Simple truths that we want you to verify. So when we think of the Israelite is the term that is used in the Old Testament strictly along with the sons of Israel, Reuben and Shimon and Levi and Judah. And you can find Benjamin. We're going to hear about Benjamin today because I'll just stick it in there. Paul says he's a Benjamite, but he also says he's a Jew. You can't be both. See, that's what I'm going to show you. It's confusing in that New Testament. You cannot be a Jew because no one in Israel was ever called a Jew or Jewish. We were called Israelites, and we practiced the Torah. The Jews' practice of the Torah is called Judaism. Now, I can't make it any simpler and plainer than that. They took our Torah, our laws in the Bible, the Negroes' laws, because you can call the people in the Bible the Negroes, the blacks, or the Israelites, same thing, synonymous. They all are the same people. The blacks are the Israelites, the Negroes, so-called Negroes, are the Israelites, or the so-called colored people are the Israelites when you break it down. So I hope you understand. Never could a European born in Europe be, who are white people, and I don't want to use that term, only to distinguish that the people in Africa are black people by features. I'm not dealing with features. We have nappy hair, they have straight hair. So one thing for sure, the people in Africa are the woolly hair people. They're the people of color. The Europeans are the straight hair people and the people that have non-pigmentation. That's another way of saying it. Because in everything we're teaching, we're not being insincere or disrespectful of anyone. But we're not compromising on the truth either. So be clear on that. There's no capitulation going to be taken here. We ain't surrendering to no lies. But we're standing firmly on truth. That's what our program is about. We're not here to show anyone. So as we go more into this fireside talk, first I would like to thank all our listeners and subscribers, and please continue to subscribe. It's encouraging. That's why I'm doing the program, because it's like it's an interest, a desire out there. If I see you're not subscribing, I feel my job is over. They've gotten enough. They're tired of this. And so, again, we can go on and do other works. There's a lot of work goes into putting these programs together. That's why I have to thank, in spite of the technical issues, which we apologize for, which sometimes occur, and many times they're due to circumstances beyond our control. But I have to thank the team of people. It's a team. Some of them in the United States that do the reading. Atara, Bak More Amra. Thanking again, Yaakov, Ben Aviezer, Ben Yehuda, here in Guyana. And we have to get the readings and all of these things, put it together, not to mention, if you could just see the work that Ak Mensa does, you'll know this is not no light task, putting this program together. Cohen Hodiah, chief coordinator of all this. Mission 8, Shemuel. People who are not even here in the studio. And you should see our studio. It's a makeshift studio. And then Italia, that is, in another place doing her deal. Occult Malcolm, wardrobe, and has to see that other things, songs, and all of that's put together. I'm just trying to tell you. Yevareka Yahoo, I'll read on the spot. Cohen Eliel here doing technical stuff as well. And I hope I didn't leave anybody out. But today is going to be an introduction. I'm going to get into the meat of our talk because I don't believe we're going to have enough time to go thoroughly in because I'll be doing it this Israelite perspective on the Epistles of Paul for a few weeks now because I got to make my point clear that just like the New Testament, you're going to see that they have taken this out of the Old Testament. They have done their manipulation to manipulate the truth into a lie, to deceive people. And I'm going to show you that, and you don't have to believe it. It's up to you. I hope you do what you're supposed to do. Seek the facts and seek the truth, because wisdom, a proverb says, those who seek me earnestly shall find me. That's the only way you're going to find truth. You can't just listen to me. I'm giving you an outline of where you can go back and follow up on the presentation, because this is not like church where I'm forcing stuff down your throat and telling you to believe it. Don't believe me. Investigate what I'm saying for yourself. Can't be fairer than that. We're not pushing a doctrine or religion. I don't have one. My promotion is of truth. That's what we're promoting. So never give up. When you see something wrong, speak up, say something. That's what we're doing. This is the time for it. This presentation will not attack Paul, the apostle, or anyone else, but it's going to show the truth. If Paul's not speaking the truth, I'm going to show you that it's just not true what he's saying. I'm not attacking him because I want you to know something about Paul. Paul is a figure that in many cases, he is the most important person in Christianity after JC. In some cases, in some Christian schools, he's more important than JC because the teachings that you receive in the New Testament, most of them are the teachings of Paul more than any other person. His are the most of what you call the teachings of Christianity. And whenever you have something that might be in your Bible in red, which they say Jesus said it, it's hearsay. They never recorded nothing. He died, and this is what they say he said. We don't agree with that. And this is another important thing. JC and the entire period of 1 AD is about Jewish European people. Israel is not in that area at the time, in the area as a nation. We didn't run into Europe. It would have been absurd to run into the forces of Greek and Rome, which was attacking you. We ran the opposite way, direction, into Africa. That's where the Israelites ran. And this period of time that I'm speaking about, because I want you to know that timeline. Let's put it up again on the line so that they can see and understand what I'm talking about. There's a period of time, and I want you to see that 500 Zedekiah in the year 1. This period in here is the most obscure period of the history between ancient and modern times. That's the dark period. Where's the dark? That's when certain changes took over. Here's what happened. During this period of time, between 1 and 5 AD, the Jewish people became Israel. We were in captivity So they usurped our heritage and they started, instead of using Israel all the time, that's when the word Jew comes in vogue. That's the word Jew now. It's during this period that the Palestinian Jews established in Palestine. This is when you get the Babylonian Jews and the Talmud established in the Palestinian Talmud. All of that Hillel and all that, that's the period that Judaism develops into the religion. And then they go and spread it into Africa. Who was the ones who spread it? This is the key. In the book of Maccabees, people have to know that when you see the word Idumea, it means the Edomites. The Edomites in the New Testament and in the Apocrypha, in the book of Maccabees, is called Idumea. In the Old Testament, he's called Edom, E-D-O-M, Edomites, I-T-E-S. Part of the trickery was, we got to change that name. Here's something just to think about. We know everybody's claiming to be Israelites. Ishmaelites are the Arabs, they claiming to be them. Where are the Edomites? Nobody don't want to be Edom. Why? Where are they? How did they disappear off the world stage? Which country are the Edomites in today? You can't tell me that. I know, but most people don't have a clue where they are today. Because you got to know what happened to them and how they switched up these names and what happened and how they became. Because someone out of Africa who knew the Torah had to teach the British, the French, the Germans, the Russians, Czechoslovakian, Hungarian, and it was not African people, not of the seed of Israel. Somebody needs to investigate and look up before I tell you who taught the Europeans the Torah. How did they convert? I think you should investigate Idumea. Because I'm telling you, if you do, you'll find out what I know. Our point is not on them or not to insult them. It's truth. Jacob and Esau were brothers. They both spoke Hebrew. They both were entitled, Esau is the firstborn, to the inheritance of Abraham. Jacob was the son who received it. What happened to Esau? David, 1 Samuel tell you, he forced them to learn the Torah. He put them in garrisons and made them live by it. So we know Esau knew the Torah. Someone scratched off the history after that as to what happened to them, where they went, and what have you. So you have to be a fine historian to check out stuff to know, even to speak about what I'm speaking about. You got to be sound in your understanding of the timeline from Adam to the present. I'm not going into all of those details. I just want to give you some things to think about, because we said this is a fireside reasoning that we have. I can't tell you everything. No teacher does. Because if you really want to learn it, you go and seek out and learn it for yourself. Because many people say, I don't believe you anyway. So go check it out. Because I'm not asking you to believe me. That's not what I'm seeking just for me speaking it to you. No. I want you to know what I'm saying is true. Like I know what I'm saying is true. This is not a belief. This is knowledge that I'm presenting to you. That's why I'm giving you the timeline. I'm going to go into things about Paul shortly, but first I want to tell you about the Torah. The Torah is called the Tanakh in the Hebrew circles. The Tau, that's a Tau, Hebrew alphabet, the last, the Nun, like an N sound in English, and a Kaf. The Tau stands for Torah and the word Tanakh. The Nun stands for Navi'im, which are prophets in the Old Testament. And The Ketuvim are Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Job. You understand what I'm saying. That's why Jewish people call the book that they read the Tanakh. The Tanakh is my book that they're reading, our book, the Hebrew Israelites. What is wrong with that? What I say is true. It's the book of the Hebrews. The Israelites wrote the Tanakh, not the Jews. So it's my book that they're reading, my Torah. It's an African heritage that they have taken. And trust me, I hope everybody in the world do what the Jews do. In terms of what? Living by the Torah. There's some other things I'm not speaking about that they've done that are not kosher, but that's not today's presentation. But you gotta give Jews credit for having successful, functioning families. Go around the world and check out their Jewish communities. Very few liquor stores. They do drugs and they drink liquor, but not like my neighborhood. Just let's be honest. Them against my people, the black people, the hood. Do you know that the ghetto in Germany is the first use of the word ghetto? That the Jewish people lived in ghettos in Germany, and now the black people, when you say ghetto, it's not associated with the Jews. It's associated with black people, people of color. Don't believe me? Just look up ghetto. Y'all can Google it up quickly, quicker than I can say it. I'm not that foolish that I would get on this program and think there's somebody out there that don't know what I'm saying. Well, I'm not doing that. I know there are people out there that know what I'm saying is true. They're intelligent. They've done research like I have. Nobody has a monopoly on knowledge. Nobody has a monopoly on truth. Taking our time today to make sure you understand what I'm talking about. Torah is what the Jewish people live by. Every Saturday, they read portions from Genesis to Deuteronomy, just like many of the Israelite temples are doing right now. You can go online. Before I came, I just saw their Shabbat Bo, which means come. In Exodus, that's where they're reading from, around the 10th chapter. I'm ahead of them because I already read Bo. I'm already further up in the Sidra. So again, Beshalach is next. Yitro is next. It goes down the line. And that's what they study, broken into portions of study within the Bible. Many of us, we study the Bible using those patterns with the Haftarah. The Haftarah is a place in the history that brings out what that law might have been in the Genesis time, in Moses' day, played out later in some way in the history. For example, the law that deals with in Exodus speaks about a Hebrew servant. In Jeremiah, you see that we didn't free them at the end of 7 years. We kept them. And so you see how that law manifested in the history of the people of Israel. Because the history and the Torah go one with another. It's just a continuation of the earlier period of the days of Moses and the days of the creation, heaven and earth, Noah's days. You know, Abraham being chosen, because that's an important name. Do you know that Abraham or Abraham is what the Christians have to look to and who they have to look to establish their religion? Ishmael, the Arabs or the Muslims, they also have to go back to the Torah, because the history of how that all begins in Abraham's sons to get the Arab people in Israel who are Muslims, they got to go to the Torah. That's why even in the Holy Quran, it says in Surah 2, to be without the Torah is to be without. Every Muslim knows the Torah is to be respected. It's the law of Musa in the Quran. And so I'm just linking us up, not dividing us, because religion divides us, and I'm not in religion. Religion divides us. Look how many we have, hundreds of them in denominations, in Christianity. Even Christianity is divided because man's word divides. Yah's word didn't unite. The creator, humanity. Under one creator, we become a humanity. Under religion, we are divided. Understand what I just said? If we all on this earth, every human being acknowledge the one who made us all, then we will all be united under the maker of heaven and earth. When we do religion, we are divided as a humanity into what this man said, that man said, the other man said, and so on and so forth, and it divides us as a human race. We must be united under the maker of heaven and earth. This is not hate, this is love. Paul speaks about love. A lot of his statements I agree with, because I agree with anybody who speaks the truth. That's why I'm saying to you, you're going to see that in our deliberation we're being fair. When we say we agree with that statement. When we don't agree, we say we disagree with that statement as well. So again, I hope you understand where we're coming from. Anyone who wants to know the teachings that are taught in a Jewish synagogue, don't believe me, visit them, and you'll see that they're doing exactly what I just said they do. I have been in synagogues, Jewish synagogues. Why? Because they worship the creator of heaven and earth. The Muslims worship the creator of heaven and earth. Hebrew Israelites, they even say we're the people of the book, meaning that we forsook the creator of heaven and earth, but let me make it clear to everyone. Forgive us. Forgive me for what we did in the past, my ancestors, but let me make it clear. All across this planet, we have returned to the creator and maker of heaven and earth. Now go on the internet. That should be a sign for everybody on the planet. The Negro is not sleeping now. He's waking up. All of us haven't awakened. That can be acknowledged also. But you can tell when someone is awakened. First of all, they ain't going to be talking Christianity. If a person who's a black person, an Israelite, so-called slave, talks Christianity, he's in mental slavery. I don't care if it's a president, right on down. This has nothing to do. God is not a respecter of person. You can be blind and be the king, and you can be a person of the poorest in the nation, and you can be ignorant, because ignorance doesn't know any status, place, color, creed, and what have you. Think about that. If you're ignorant, you can be anybody. So it doesn't matter. You could say sometimes that's our problem. We say, oh, LeBron James, he's a great basketball player, but he can't speak on the Bible. I don't care if let's say, Melo converts to be a Hebrew Israelite. He better talk to somebody like me that's been studying this like he was studying them jump shots. Hey, I respect your jumper. It's sweet. But you cannot speak on this topic unless you did the training that I've done in this area. That's where my work is going. You put in years, I put over 50 in this, half a century is what my time is in this work, this training, this knowledge. And it's never going to stop, because my father told me you should never stop learning, and you will stop in the day of your death. But until then, you should be trying to learn everything you can about everything you can. So much in this world to learn about. But for us, this topic is the key to your awakening, black man, so-called black man. Until you unravel that deception in the Bible, you'll remain in mental slavery. You got to study the stuff that them Jewish people study. Then you'll be wise. They just took your stuff, your information, your book, your writings, your wisdom, and learned it well. Hear what I said? They know it well. Do not fool yourself. They've been studying it, I told you, from the time of the Palestinian Babylonian captivity. They have been doing this 500 years approximately, and you can add that to David's a garrison of them before they became Jews and Christianity. Edom knew the Torah. Israel knew the Torah. They're the only two that knew the Torah of the ancient peoples. And we were told, the Hebrew Israelites, to be a light unto the nation. That's why you see light and darkness used in the New Testament. Why? Because they know those are familiar metaphors of the old. We've shown you how they took the lamb and made it to a man, that we would call the lost sheep of the house of Israel, but they made one man the lamb. You got to see how they did it. This was not an unintelligent person that put this New Testament together. This was a shrewd, clever scholar that put this together. And again, I want you to know, Paul is a figure that many Christians respect. Let's listen to the epistle Paul, the Romans, read by our sister Torah. It's giving us a little historical background on this subject, the epistle of Paul. We're going to look at our article on the name, the purpose of this book of Paul, this epistle. And let me make this clear, because I erroneously said it. An epistle is a letter. This is not a book. It's a handwritten personal letter. And it's not written to an individual, because I don't even know, when I think about it, well, how did the mailman deliver it? Because if you write it to the Romans, must have been hundreds, at least thousands and hundreds of thousands of them. How? And to whom was it delivered? No stamps were available, nothing like that. So again, some things just to think about. Home Express, how did the mail get moved? Did he take it himself? How long was the travel? What was the distance between where he was and where he went? Let's look at that footage, listen to the footage.
Epistle of Paul, the Apostle to the Romans. In the order of its appearance in the New Testament, Romans is the first of 13 epistles written by the Apostle Paul, but it was not the first in the order of composition. It is quite certain that the 2 epistles to the church of Thessalonica, the 2 to the church of Corinth, and probably the epistle to the Galatians were all written prior to the writing of the epistle to the Romans. It was evidently written from Corinth about AD 56 during Paul's 3rd visit to that city. This conclusion is sustained by reference to his plans to proceed at once to Jerusalem with the contribution for the brethren which he had stressed in his earlier letters to Corinth. The occasion and purpose of this epistle may be gleaned from certain statements and the general tone of the teachings of the contents. The personal occasion was Paul's passion for worldwide gospel evangelism, prompted by his desire to visit Rome, the most important center. The more general occasion was the need of the scattered groups of Christians in Rome for doctrinal instruction. Paul was justifiably fearful that Judaizing teachers and influences might reach Rome and deflected the believers of that imperial city from the fundamentals of Christ's gospel. The departure of his friend Phoebe to Rome presented the opportunity for sending a letter to the Christians of that city. Moved by his deep, passionate missionary zeal, prompted by the conditions already reviewed, and inspired by the Holy Spirit, Paul gave to Christianity this greatest of all his epistles, if not, indeed, the greatest book of the New Testament. The epistle to the Romans may be outlined by following the detailed order of Paul's purpose: the teaching of the fundamental doctrines of salvation, the explaining of the unbelief of Israel, the clarifying of the practical duties of Christians, the expounding of the superlative character of love, the enjoining of Christian forbearance, the presenting of Paul's purposes and plans, the commendation of Phoebe, and greetings to friends.
Yes, as we can see, the epistles of Paul are not in order that they were written, but they've ordered them according to their length. So there can be no chronology when we're reading these epistles of Paul. You have to know and do further research to see at what time he might have written to the various peoples that were mentioned in our presentation. Main point being here, they're not in order that they actually occurred. Let's listen to some music to open up our visions about what we previously thought and around what we know to be truth and facts. A new vision. Yes, got to open up your vision today. Black people need a new vision of themselves, of understanding who the creator and maker of heaven and earth is. Do you know that Paul is really called Saint Paul? Well, how did he become Saint Paul? One, he had to die, because to be a saint in the Catholic Church, you must die, and you must have at least 100 people that testify about your goodness, your good works, or sometimes they even say in their religion, a miracle that they might have witnessed. I don't know. That's what they say. And so that's how Paul became a saint. He's one of the highest respected. I remember figures in Christianity. I remember when Teresa, now they call her Saint Teresa. That happened during my lifetime. She had to die though, but she was a benevolent person, because I've watched many times showing her going around the world, helping people. But I want to tell you this, from an Israelite perspective, Christianity has confused millions of people on this earth. Now, to them, they're spreading their religion, but I'm saying to you, from my perspective, from an Israelite perspective, they're spreading confusion. They've been the mass spreaders, not of the virus, a super spreader, but they've been a super spreader of this false religion. That's what they do. Them evangelists. Paul was an evangelist. People are still doing his work. He was the first century, or the first evangelist. That's why Paul is so important to Christianity, not to me, but to Christians, because he was one of the key figures that spread their religion. If I were a Christian, I would respect him too. That's why I'm saying to you, no, I'm not disrespecting him. To them, he may be a prophet, because one thing we must know, the Creator did not give the heritage of Israel that he gave to Moses on Mount Sinai to everyone. Everyone have their own heritage. And you can't condemn them for having it. And if they're satisfied with it, they have a right to be. We were told in Isaiah to be a light unto the nations. And that's what our purpose is here, to help you, whoever you are, find truth. Israelite in particular, because this is your history, this is your truth. And you need it more than anyone else. Paul was born Saul of Tarsus. I'd like to thank all of you who have listened in to the introduction to an Israelite's perspective on the epistles of Paul the Apostle. This program today was just an introduction. There'll be several programs that follow, and for those who missed some of the presentation this week, we're going to include it in next week's presentation due to the disruption that took place today. We are attempting to link up the genealogies, the true genealogies of the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because the Hebrew people live today, and everyone should know that the Hebrews are, of course, Ishmael, Abraham's firstborn, and the two sons of Yitzchak, Jacob and Esau. They're all Hebrews, they're brothers. And of course, Ishmael had 12 sons, recorded in Genesis, the 25th chapter. And we are going to show how important genealogy is, because in the New Testament, they condemn the teachers of genealogy. And we must not accept such a foolish teaching. When you eliminate genealogy, then we're saying that who we are does not matter. And that's just not so. It's part of the game that's been played on our minds. Everyone else has a genealogy. Now they have these programs called Search for Your Ancestry. Genealogy is not important. Why do we have such programs? Because they know it's important to everyone else. They don't want to make it important to so-called Black people who don't have the knowledge of their true genealogy. We give thanks to the Holy One of Israel, the maker of heaven and earth. And I know, and I would like to thank so many of you who appreciate what we're doing on our program. We need your support. It is evident that we do not have the support of everyone, but our desire is what the Creator desires, that the day will come when every knee will bow and every tongue will swear by the Creator and maker of heaven and earth. We're waiting and trying to enhance, speed up the day, when from Shabbat to Shabbat and new moon to new moon, all flesh will worship the Creator and maker of heaven and earth, Yahuwah Zevaot. Translated, Yahuwah of hosts. In English, Lord of hosts. But we know the one who's over all the hosts, the armies of the world, the mosquitoes and the locusts and the things in the sea and the viruses, they all are part of his host, his armies. Sun and moon, stars, the angels, they all serve the Creator. That's why I love Sar Abraham's song, everything in creation serves you. And that's the way it is. This kingdom spread out in exile today because we are a kingdom, we're a nation, a monarch. We have a king, we're a nation with a monarch who's also been sent into exile. That's why you see about Zedekiah, the first of the kings of Israel to go into captivity, along with all the others. We're making the Bible real and updating it for you to understand it in our day and time, because they've placed a blanket, a veil over the truth, and we're removing that veil for all eyes to see. We are thankful that the prophecies that were mentioned by the Creator are now being fulfilled. He said, I who scattered Israel will gather them together. And he's doing it today. He said that from the greatest to the least of you will know the Lord. No longer will you say, teach each one the Lord, but every one of you will know the Lord, from the greatest even unto the least of you in Israel, in my nation. So you need to study Torah. Everyone that is a part of this so-called colored people's experience, the Negro experience. Your history is the history of Israel in the Bible. And there's so many people who have said it before me, have known it. We've mentioned them in the past. How many today? Stoudemire, Mello, Frank Taser. I hope is her name correct. Yeah, and you know what I'm speaking about. You young people know even more people that I'm mentioning. You're saying them out loud right now. Think about all the music that's coming out with people saying with Israel and acknowledging that they too are an Israelite. If you're a black person, you too are Israel. You're an Israelite also. You're not a Negro. You're not a Democrat, not by nationality. You're not a Christian, that's not a nationality. You're not a Muslim. In fact, to my Muslim brothers and sisters, you know that what I'm saying is that I have submitted to the Creator. All Israel knows we didn't before, but we who have understanding agree with you. We must submit. All mankind must submit to the Maker of heaven and earth. We just have another name within our Hebrew language. No disrespect to you in the name that you use. We are cousins. If I'm Yisrael and Abraham was your father, and Yitzchak, again, is the son that you came from, his other son, Ishmael and Yitzchak, were brothers. Their children were cousins. We understand this. Sometimes among all mankind, we all know this is true also. Brothers have not always been brotherly. So that's part of the problem. Racism is called it, racial division, hatred. The Lord says you should not hate your brother in your heart, not for Israel's only. That's why certain things that Paul said, he's reiterating these thoughts that come from these teachings. I agree with him when they are right and when they're correct. And I will point out and disagree when they're inaccurate and when they're wrong. Again, we are thankful for a day like today, a Shabbat day, when following so much anticipation of upheaval in the U.S., For the good of all human beings, I'm glad it didn't turn out to bloodshed. No one gains and wins through war. Do we have to find an intelligent platform to use our words to express our position without anger, with humility, looking to listen to the other party, to see what truth they speak, to investigate their position and see how we can find a united position? All Israel is going through this struggle. All the people in the nations of the earth are struggling with the relationship issue. How do we live together on earth when we disagree? And we all know that no one ever agrees on everything, so the Creator has to have a way, and He did. He gave us the Torah, a righteous way to live one with another, to settle disputes. Another thing that I want you to know about the Torah and the New Testament, and there's no word called ordinance in Hebrew. It's mishpat. And in Christianity and many religions, they try to eliminate that part of the law is judgments. There's sentences, punishments that are also part of the law. That when a person violates or disobeys the Torah, sometimes the punishment is death for murder, for adultery. Again, there are other penalties, stripes. One short of 40 stripes, 39, is another judgment that can come. We have orphans. We have to pay a fine with an animal. And animals had a price. So it was again a sacrifice called a sin offering, a shagaga and a sham. Never did the Creator ask for a human sacrifice. On this point, again, we cannot accept Christian teachings and not ourselves be placed under divine judgment of the Most High that made heaven and earth. This is to help you understand. For hundreds, literally thousands of years, the world has not heard from a Cohane More, translated a teaching Cohane, a priest, as you would call it, a servant that was a teacher of Yah. This is what you're hearing today, all around the internet, not just on this program. And today we hope, once again, that this program has been in service to you, that it's beneficial and helpful, and that you have begun to see the vision and your mind is opening up to a greater and a correct understanding of the Bible, the truth-centered program that we have is designed strictly to teach the truth. May the Holy One of Israel bless you. Yivareka Yehovah, Vayishmareka. Ya'ir Yehovah Panayu, Aleka Wikuneka. Yisa Yehovah, Panayu Aleka, Vayasim Leka. Shalom. Hallelujah.
should put my name upon the children of Israel, and I bless them. Sing